Serious dark web users of Reddit, was there ever a point in your use that you felt you were genuinely in danger? What happened? Redditor 1, not the modern dark web, but back in the days of Usenet I posted some harsh CL8 criticism in alt.religion.scientology. Yes, that was a typo for Scientology, but I'm leaving it for context of a bunch of posts. The online threats were funny, but when I started getting death threats by mail I backed the duck off. Edit, I didn't think this would blow up like it did, but to answer a few common questions, I posted a bunch or criticism of the costs in the Usenet group alt.religion.scientology. This was in the late 90s and well before most modern forums and content aggregators like Reddit existed. Fark was the big one and Dig was just starting to get popular. I was high school for non-Americans, grades 9-12. I was in high school and was using my home computer as an FTP server for a wares group on IRC because I convinced my dad to sign up for a 90-day free trial of this new thing called broadband. I had 3 megabits per second down and 1.5 megabits per second up. Of course we never canceled it. They figured out who I was by using a cute FTP vulnerability to get root directory access to my PC. The death threats were bad enough, but what really sticks with me is the malice of deleting my family photos, including the last picture is us with my dad while he was alive. I was the typical invincible feeling young adult, and I was more concerned about worrying my mom than I was about my own safety. This was long before doxing was a thing, and online threats going from email to handwritten letters was terrifying, but as a high school kid I never would have admitted it. Nobody asked, but if I was confronted in person I would have fought back. 18 years later, if they really held a grudge and threatened me again with the same malice expressed in those letters I got, I would open the door with a gun in hand, and if they tried to get in, I would assume that they were intending to kill me and shoot first. This is a serious post, so as funny as it would be to accept the previous statement with the autocomplete error shit first, I fixed it. Redditor 2, I've written a couple of books about the dark web, which means I've spent a bit of pretty much every day of the past 8 years poking around inside. Over the years I spoke to, interviewed, and even visited many dark web identities, drug dealers and operators of darknet markets mostly. I attended the trial of one of the most evil people on the planet, Lux, the owner of Hurt to the Core, a child torture site turned out to be a friendless, unhappy kid who built his evil empire from his childhood bedroom, with his parents blissfully unaware of what was happening under their noses. The only time I felt even slightly in danger despite all this nosing around in there was when I helped uncover a hitman scam. The owner of Bessa Mafia, the most profitable murder-for-hire site in history, came after me when I started writing about him. He made loads of threats. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are and where you live, but that wasn't scary, as I had access to the back door of his site thanks to a friendly hacker and knew he didn't really want to hurt anybody. It took a bit of a darker turn when he told the people who had signed up to work as hitmen on his site and who he made video themselves burning cars with signs on them to advertise how legit his site was, then never sent them the promised money for doing so, that I was the owner of the site who had ripped them off. That could have become ugly, but luckily even the thugs weren't dumb enough to believe him. The only other time I've been a bit nervous was when Homeland Security wanted to have a friendly meeting with me on one of my trips to the US to attend a trial. They were friendly, but scary too. The books about all the above and other dark web stuff are here. Ormsby EBOOSSP 75XO. Edit, I'm trying to respond to everyone, but I can't keep up. If I haven't answered your question, please don't take it personally. I probably missed it. Edit again, and I'm definitely not going into any private chats. Sorry to all of you who are trying. Seriously. Stop redoing an AMA. Thanks so much for suggesting an AMA, but this exact same thing happened a couple of years ago. I responded to an askreddit thread, it blew up, everyone said you should do an AMA and then nobody came. You can find them by going through my history anyway. Redditor 3, I've never personally felt I was in actual danger, so to speak, since I take proper precautions, but early on I did accidentally come across a site forum while exploring that was filled with snuff photos of women people had assaulted and then knocked out or killed. Shut down my browser pretty quick after that, but felt uneasy for a long time after. Redditor 4, don't frequent it a lot, but once I accidentally left my browser in full screen and a stranger in a chat room asked me if my curved monitor was nice, Freaked me out a bit. Redditor 5, webcam turned itself on once. That was scary. I immediately unplugged it and my network cable, ran 3 complete scans of my system for malware and viruses. Found nothing. Hasn't happened since. Redditor 6, had a buddy who used to order weed. The distributor got busted and the postal service let him know there was a suspicious package for him. He could either pick it up or it would be destroyed. Redditor 7, I was a casual orderer of the dark web for a while and got pretty big into it and started buying slightly bulky packages of drugs. If you knew the markets for a while, then you would know one called Alphabet was the best of the best. The Amazon of drugs and fraud would be its best description. However, it went down mysteriously one day and everyone assumed the owners just scammed everyone for their Bitcoin. Partially true, but in the background it was actually seized the DEA. Everyone flocked to a new site called Hansa, which had some sketchy design features, but it was the next best alternative. Turns out the Dutch police took over the site and with cooperation of multiple governments ran a drug distribution onion site with over $1 million of transactions for around a month. They were gathering information from unsuspecting users, including me, who bought with faulty security practices. Now this is where I started freaking out. Imagine trafficking drugs through the mail, and the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Sessions, makes a speech live on television that he was going to crack down and explicitly explains how fucked everyone on Hansa was because they have been gathering data for over a month. And in a big DCK Energy move closes the site and puts up a banner in its place saying everyone who has purchased will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law during his live speech. I was shitting myself for a month as many arrests did occur, but luckily I guess I wasn't important enough and nothing happened to me. Redditor 8, the idea that the dark web is an extremely shocking and dangerous place is largely inaccurate. It's mostly weird libertarian blogs and very sterile Amazon-type websites for drugs, complete with reviews of different vendors. Redditor 9, everything feels government-owned. I used to frequent drug sites. They would go down for weeks at a time. Then pop up again, have weird prices. Sellers were different. It made the dark web feel like a labyrinth more than a ruleless wasteland. Redditor 10, came across a chance-style site. Every post was about trains. Wouldn't say I felt in danger, but I felt so out of the loop that I was missing something that I just got off. Redditor 11, I own a fairly rare car that had a rare error code. I looked it up on Google and there was only one other person on the car makers forum that had the same error. And this guy took months and months going back and forth between car shops and the forum thread to try to get the issue fixed. Everyone on the forum was pitching in to try to help him. So I kept going through this long forum thread to try to figure out if he ever fixed it. And suddenly there's no more replies from the guy. Everyone was scratching their heads for a while. We thought he had maybe gotten the issue fixed and didn't bother to update us on it. Then one day, a news article popped up about a really rich guy who died in a Thai jail cell. And then we connected the two stories and they matched up. The same make and model of the car in the news article matched up with his car. And they were both claiming to be in Thailand at the time. So what happened was that same guy who was still talking on the forums got raided by the Thai police around the same time he stopped replying to the forum. Turns out that he was running one of the biggest dark web marketplaces where drugs were being sold and exchanged. It had something like $1 million in revenue per day and he was hiding out in Thailand while living in luxury. They found him dead in his jail cell a few days later. They claim he died of suicide. Redditor 12, I once bought a bit of weed and I received a blackmail letter threatening me with awful things like sending CP and calling the police if I didn't send one BTC $1,000 at the time. I was scared shitless, but nothing ever happened. Always check the reviews before buying anything. Redditor 13, you don't just stumble onto the scary parts of the dark web, you had to have been looking for something sinister if you happened to come across one of the sites. Even then, getting access to said sites isn't as easy as most of them are invite-based. Most of it is just the normal internet with questionable forums, think 4chan, but slightly worse, and petty drugs. It's very hard to reach the criminal parts of the dark web unless you have very specific URLs, and even then the host has the option to deny you access. However, once you're in, it can become a slippery slope. Redditor 14, accidentally stumbled upon some CP once. Noped out pretty fast but was still worried for weeks the FBI would come after me. Redditor 15, there's hitmen, human trafficking and snuff films and such, but a vast majority of these sites are scams asking you to send them Bitcoin. A small portion of users on the dark web would be there for this sort of stuff. However, buying drugs online is quite popular and widespread. Single vendors can have $500,000 plus in lifetime sales. It's quite safe to use. You use PGP to encrypt your address so only the seller of the drugs has access to your private info. If your package is seized, they'll have no proof you ordered it unless they seize your computer and you have that information stored on it. You can use Tails USB to avoid this. Even if your packages get seized, you'll often get a love letter saying what they seized and there is no follow-up after that. Also, duck Reddit. It's a complete cesspool of censorship and bias. I was a 10-year user permanently banned for not following groupthink. You are not allowed to have your own opinions. Redditor 16. Be safe, boys and girls. Don't give out your information or communicate with others. And if you plan on purchasing anything, use a secure Linux OS like Tails, use private keys, connect to a public Wi-Fi spot not your house, encrypt all messages, use multi-signature markets so your chances of losing your Bitcoin lessens, escrow preferably, never send your Bitcoins from a wallet attached to you directly to the seller, tumble your coins first. And when the package arrives, don't open it for a few days. A friend of mine gave me all this info and told me I should help you guys out. Redditor 17, the scariest moment for me was when I stumbled upon a creepy ARG and thought it was something much more sinister, until I found out it was just an ARG. The dark web isn't really that scary. It has been romanticized and exaggerated by creepypastas, TV shows and etc. Edit, I know stuff like the Red Room and CP exist on the dark web. It's just that it is not that common. Most are scams or require a membership. The common user won't find much, but you will find something really off-putting if you dig enough. Redditor 18, in college some friends and I ordered a 100 sheet of acid, using Bitcoin, to our college PO boxes. We got pretty terrified when it didn't arrive when it should have. We thought it was found by USPS, our own mail service, or the DEA. We were paranoid. Turns out they just shipped it later than they said. We got our 100 tabs, but that was a very stressful week and a half for all of us. Redditor 19, a friend of mine used to use Silk Road on the darknet when Bitcoin was $10 a pop. He placed at least 100 orders through it and never had any issues. It's a shame he didn't keep all the Bitcoin he bought because he would have been a millionaire now. Redditor 20, not really a dark web user, but I got doxxed by a neo-Nazi group on the dark web and ended up having to use the dark web to find the websites that had my information. Department of Homeland Security and the FBI showed up on my doorstep because they were threatening to send me letter bombs and send people to abduct and arm me. It was scary shit. They all fell off the face of the earth recently, so I'm just hoping the feds got to them. Edit, I elaborated more in the comments. Feel free to ask questions, but I might not give too much more information out. I don't want to be identified by anyone who's come across my docs or is associated with the group who did this in the first place. Edit, holy shit, thanks for 4.8k upvotes. Never gotten that many before, Lamau. I hope everyone who saw this took this as a reminder to not duck with people and mind yourself online. Scary world out there, man, scary shit. Redditor 21, no. The dark web is actually not very exciting and it's very hard to use. The only danger you are in is getting a visit from the law after trying to buy drugs online. Edit. The deep web is non-indexed sites. The dark web refers to non-indexed sites that often require Tor and often offer illegal content. The dark web is not exciting for one because most of what a normal person would be able to find are honeypots run by law enforcement. To access the deep dark web you need an address, no Google searching, and most addresses you can find on the clearnet are going to be compromised. If you're smart enough with this, you will probably be able to find a place that will let you buy drugs online and actually get the drugs if they aren't found by the mail service. Any hitman contract killer services you can find are certainly honeypots. You will not find some sort of snuff PRN site or L33T hacker enclave where they will trace your IP etc. The ideas people have of the dark web are usually that last bit, which just isn't something you're going to find. And you can find videos of people dying on the clear net. You don't need the dark web for that. Redditor 22, I actually learned how to access the dark web by listening to NPR. They had a segment where an author who was writing a book about it basically gave step-by-step instructions on how to do it. I did everything he said and, by golly, it worked. Truthfully, it was pretty underwhelming. Mostly just drugs and counterfeit items, passports, money, etc. I did find some weapons with the serial numbers scratched off, pistols and shotguns, but nothing that would start World War III. I also saw a couple ads for hitmen, but they seemed pretty hokey and were most likely undercover cops. I never felt in danger, but I have never gone back because there's nothing I really want from there. No government agents have kicked down my door, either. Redditor 23, dark web ain't scary B. I once bought a big crate of cup noodles for a cheap price. Redditor 24, have you actually been on the dark web? It's actually quite hard to find bad things. Redditor 25, one time I got twice the amount of drugs that I actually ordered. Was paranoid for about 2 hours and then I just got really high and it was fine. Redditor 26, I was trying to buy those super cool laser pointers and I got a random message saying I know where you live. I noped out of that site straight away. Redditor 27, if it was the dark web but accidentally came across a website that was basically just Pornhub but for gore. I saw a couple seconds of a man with his hands already chopped off getting his face peeled off by some sort of cartel and noped the duck out. I had to take a break from the internet for a couple of days. Redditor 28, it's pretty boring. I used it to buy drugs a few times, which was nice. Redditor 29, so I had ordered many times on the dark web, but one day I decided to place a rather large order of ecstasy pills from Europe to the USA. I had a terrible feeling in my gut after the order was placed and actually had some serious food poisoning or something that night. Lol. Cut to weeks later, I ended up getting arrested for the pills and entering the worst time of my entire life. Redditor 30, my friends and I were once ordering some green off the dark web. On the way, we saw a dude selling cyanide. Don't ask me how I got it. Don't tell me what you'll use it for. Violation of either condition will void the sale. Redditor 31, religious Silk Road and CGMC user here. I used to get the stuff delivered to my dorm, but the package didn't come directly to my room. I had to go pick it up from my dorm's building office. For my third or fourth order from Silk Road, I got an email saying that a package had arrived for me, but when I went to pick it up I was told by a RA that my package was in the door's office. I got freaked out. I also for some reason was getting a lot of spam calls, which just added to my anxiety. I was scared shitless. I didn't go to pick it up for like 4 days, meanwhile kept getting emails from the door's office to come to get my package. I didn't go because I thought that it was a setup. But after a couple of days, I said duck it and went to pick up my package. I had paid a lot of BTC for that order and wanted to consume what I had ordered. When I got there, I realized that I was freaking out for no reason. The people holding on to my order couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't give me a reason why that package was delivered there and not to my dorm. So I just kept ordering more. Lol. Edit: the package was always delivered by USPS Priority, which is run by the federal government, and I went to a state university. So technically the federal government transported funny stuff to the state government for me. Lamau. Redditor 32, I've used the dark web once or twice. Scariest thing was when my screen went black for a few moments and turned back on. Wasn't anything big, just my display cable fucking up, but it did give me the creeps. As for dark or disturbing shit, I've only found a list of random addresses. The dark web really has a lot of stigma associated with it. For the most part it's just people curious about the dark web or people trying to scam you or sell you drugs. You have to do a lot of looking to find the really fucked up stuff. You're more likely to find dark web type crap on Reddit or YouTube than the actual dark web. Redditor 33, every time. Remember that the person you just bought drugs from knows 1. Your address. 2. That you have drugs in your house. 3. There's probably evidence of dark web use in your finances, computer trash. They can rat you out with impunity just because they're feeling malevolent. They also could just get caught and be careless with destroying ex-customer information, so it hangs over my head to this day. Redditor 34, not dark web, but mid-90s web. I was 12, and obviously puberty was in control. This was chat room days. Kid I was acquainted with, an Eagle Scout nonetheless, had all these floppy disks full of pornographic images from some shoal supposedly in Texas. Me and a few other friends were over puberty, so were eager to see naked women. It soon took a quick turn with girls that were likely my age. I immediately noped the duck out and never really talked to the kid again. But knowing the Boy Scouts, I wasn't getting involved, but I was like 13 and didn't even want to tell my mom I was interested in women. I regret that day a lot. I should have called the police. Sadly, I just compartmentalized it. 1996 was weird. Redditor 35, someone who isn't me was on a drug marketplace once, where heroin, crack cocaine, sometimes PCP are listed, but if you're experienced, you don't even bat an eye. What that person did see once were pills pressed from the residue powders that ostensibly covered the press. These included mixtures of meth, fentanyl, Xanax, Molly, amphetamines, GHB. Shit is scary because you have no idea what exact ratios the mixture will be composed of, and with heavy hitting, high-odd potential drugs like fentanyl, everyone wouldn't be surprised if that particular listing led to multiple overdoses. Redditor 36, I now see clicking on this thread was a mistake. Redditor 37, I stumbled on an animal torture page, uninstalled Tor just a few seconds after, but the mental scarring is for life. Edit, since many people have asked how I stumbled on such a thing. This is how. Well, I was browsing a hidden wiki, and if my memory serves correctly, the entries were: drug sellers, nah, I don't do drugs. Child porn, nope, not my fetish. Hitman services, nope, not yet. Credit card numbers, I am pretty well of right now, so not needed. Animal torture, I have watched those videos published by PETA, and yes, they were disturbing but not at all horrifying, and defiantly did not convert me to veganism. How bad can this be? Oh, how I was. Redditor 38, not really, it's just sometimes some creepy shit on the dark web forums. I have seen more disgusting things on 4chan, to be honest, other than that you have to be specifically searching for that shit, and even then it's hard AF. There is no one search engine but many, and with different results. The dark web is general dull. Most of the site is just for dealing drugs, other than it's dull, not to say that there is not some interesting site on there. Redditor 39, the deep web isn't scary. Just don't give out any information and you're good. The best story I have of visiting the deep web is that I joined a Lord of the Rings fan site. It was called the Shire or the Hobbit Hole or something. Yes, you can find bad stuff on there, but it's mostly just drugs. The only reason you shouldn't buy anything on the deep web is because it's most likely a scam. They will just take your money and run. You can find more disgusting stuff on the clear web than you can on the deep web. There's just so much stuff that it's impossible to find it all. Redditor 40, to be in danger, you'd need to get involved in illegal stuff directly. It's not like unfriended lol. Redditor 41, no, I don't go on the read rooms, child PRN, and buying drugs and bombs side of the dark web. I just go on the dark web to collect free bonuses from a bunch of gambling sites without being tracked. Edit, since all of you keep asking, some gambling sites allow you to get free spins without having to deposit any bitcoins or have the minimum number of bitcoins you have to deposit, like 0.000001 BTC, and I just collect the money from the free spins and make another account. Redditor 42, I haven't felt in danger on the evil internet. Sure, you can find all sorts of stuff on there that you'd like to tell the police about, and sure, other people are in danger, but as long as you stick to the path and don't make yourself an easy mark, you'll be fine. The worst I found was a Red Room streaming site. When I got there, they had a countdown for I think it was an hour or so naturally, being a 15-year-old boy, I waited around. When it reached 5 or so minutes, it opened the chat, which had like 20 or less people in it, and announced the name of some girl. You could tell that only 5 or so people were here for blood and the rest were just kids being kids. Then when the countdown was over, it prompted me to pay in Bitcoin to see it, so naturally I went on my merry way. Redditor 43, seen because of email back in time. No dark web. A snuff with some Russian dismember and decapitate a woman alive in a bathroom. Wrong title in the video. Still pretty shocked by this cursed video. I was a lot younger and the impact was strong AF. I was like, what I've seen? What I've seen? Like in panic, wanted naively to call the police but fearing that they will trust I have anything to do with that shit, etc. My mind was like jelly. I was around 13-14 years old. Internet was a pretty new thing. Downloading illegally a movie and seeing a horrible video. Not ready at all. That day, I realized that internet is a window to the world. For the best and for the worst things. Redditor 44, not the dark web but Omegle. Me and my brother were camping and decided to go on Omegle afterwards. We started watching Netflix. To go to sleep I realized my webcam light was still on and me and my brother couldn't find out why the Omegle tab was closed, so we tried manually turning it off. It didn't work, so we decided to open Omegle back up. As soon as we opened it up we realized some creepy dude had been watching us the whole time. It scared the duck out of us. He immediately left the chat. Needless to say we didn't sleep in our tent that night. TL, Dr. Creepy Dude was watching us through my webcam. Redditor 45, not dark web but I used to work for a disabled guy. He'd been pretty badly disabled for 20 years and spent most of his time gaming and watching films. He was there early on when torrenting file sharing started. He even said that he topped some lists of most prolific downloaders worldwide in the early days. Could be bragging, I don't know. He told me he'd only ever had any issues once. He downloaded a film for his kids, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He was in the habit of checking every film before he let his kids watch but didn't this time. Just hit play. He looked up at the screen after a minute or so to see a Snow White themed child PRN video playing, 1 woman, 7 kids, etc. He didn't go into details or say how much his kids saw. Just that he freaked out, exited the file and then went to the bathroom to throw up. Redditor 46, most people just buy and sell drugs. You have to be explicitly searching for messed up things to find them. Redditor 47, I never felt in danger using the darknet, but I did almost lose everything to it. I started in the Alphabet days, then Dream and eventually Empire, which to my knowledge is still operating to this day. I ordered everything and anything, mainly out of curiosity. I wouldn't say I had a problem with anything in particular until the day I ordered crystal meth. Fast forward a few years later and I was slamming it and using daily. I almost chose meth over my wife and 2 beautiful boys. And no one was the wiser besides eventually my wife. No one at work knew. For the most part I was pretty good at hiding my use, although I feel like I would have been caught eventually. 69 days sober today. I still struggle but life is better. Redditor 48, no, unless you're visiting or buying really weird shit you're fine. The people that have felt this way would be self-incriminating to answer the question. Redditor 49, reading all these comments, articles, and stories is so upsetting to me. Especially as I'm lying in bed cuddling with my sleeping 4-month-old. Why would anyone ever hurt babies and children? I wish I hadn't browsed these comments. Going to be holding my son extra tight tonight. Redditor 50, when Silk Road was replaced with this site has been seized by the CIA. I shat bricks. I always wonder how rich I would be now if I had the bitcoins. Redditor 51, it's just an internet connection that's extremely hard to trace. It's not scary. Redditor 52, honestly, you're going to be disappointed by the answers. Any of those dark web stories found on YouTube are purely fictional. I mean, there is interesting stuff, but nothing that poses a danger to someone. Redditor 53, I knew a guy that was obsessed with trauma PRN, didn't make you feel unsafe, it's just pretty disturbing to see. Redditor 54, I don't go to dark web, but there was an instance in my country Philippines regarding an Australian expat named Peter Scully. He ran a pay-per-view video stream of child torture and RP with his girlfriends, a lot of which were child prostitutes themselves at one point. The Philippines has an insidious, almost invisible problem with child prostitution due to the rampant poverty, but this case shook so much people for how deplorable his methods were. Daisy's destruction was a video he made that sold for $10,000. It features the torture and RP of 3 little girls, including Daisy, who was 18 months old. He is serving lifetime in a Philippine prison. I hope the inmates beat him up every day. Redditor 55, Normal people browsing shouldn't be scared. The only odd thing I saw was animal PRN on accident, but on the regular web I've seen way worse, like the ISIS killings and stuff. You have to go out of your way to find the bad shit. Redditor 56, yeah, no. Illicit drugs for sale, and forums to talk about it. Don't believe everything you read. Redditor 57, I've been on the dark web and honestly it's really hard to come across illegal or scary stuff unless you're actively looking for it. However, I would argue you're more likely to come across illegal or sick content on the surface web on accident. Just look at all those gore posts on social media. But once I was on like page 20 of Goggle looking for a specific abandonware program, forgot what it was, and got a pop-up for CP. Don't want to describe it. I feel compared to others I'm pretty tolerable of certain things, but that just made me throw up and even made me cry. I was so scared. Who knows who runs that site and what malware it has, but also the fact my ISP may have seen it, and I could get agents busting down my door any second. Thank God that never happened, and I'm glad the content didn't traumatize me. Only regret not reporting the site. I was in such shock I just unplugged my computer in a rush. Basically, don't go on page 20 of Goggle. Redditor 58, the dark web is just boring, to be honest. You can't find that much on there since there are so many trolls. As for a point that scared me, not really in danger, I found a forum that had people talking about how much they wanted to beat up women, but that's about it. Redditor 59, when I realized how easy it is to get any single drug I could ever want. Redditor 60, not really. My main regret about the dark web relates to the amount of cheap Bitcoin I spent on there. Years ago I used to buy Bitcoins at £5 to £7 each, which I promptly spent. At their peak those Bitcoins would have been worth £15,000 each. Redditor 61, my friends use it to buy drugs, other than that, nothing. Redditor 62, I once got hit with a really poorly made computer virus. It was based on TeamViewer by the looks of it. I got the virus from a download link, but I can't remember what I was trying to download. Probably some kind of audio editing program if memory serves. As soon as the download was done, the virus activated it, and it looked like something from an old version of TeamViewer. The mouse started moving on its own, so my immediate reaction was to disconnect my internet cable. I then shut the virus down from Task Manager and converted the file to a text file. Despite having no experience with programming at the time, even I could tell that it was made by a complete beginner. Most of the thing was blocks of code copy-pasted into it randomly and connected by a few lines of code, and copious use of Godot. Was an absolute mess. It did get me interested in programming though, so I think the experience was a net positive. Redditor 63, I take serious precautions on my time at the dark web, but I've seen videos where they RP women and then slaughter their head. I've never understood why people get pleasure causing others pain. I still feel uneasy thinking about that. Redditor 64, about half an hour into browsing, a window popped and someone demanded money. When I replied WTF, he said I should switch off the light, and then my CD drive came out ejected. I turned off router and laptop. Redditor 65, so, I'm 56 yo and have never stumbled into the dark web, thank God. I just spent more time than I should have reading about the ghastly videos that apparently thousands of you have seen, mostly by accident, and mostly when you were young children. Every single one of you noted how damaging the images and sounds were to you, and for many of you, that damage lingered. I'm especially saddened to read about those of you who were sweet innocents, just trying to have fun, who were ambushed by this unimaginable horror. Who knows how it changed you? I'm very grateful that the internet didn't exist when I was a child, not that the videos described are any easier to process as an adult, but still, and I'm sitting here, wondering how much of the anxiety disorders, depression, and lack of resilience and compassion that I see in our society is linked to what I'm reading here. It's really frightening to ponder, especially as this Reddit question, with over 7,000 comments, is only the tiniest tip of the iceberg. Those of you with young children, as a former college professor and a parent myself, here's my unsolicited advice: know your children. Closely watch their emotional development and behavior. Create open, non-judgmental, safe relationships where they feel secure in the knowledge they can come talk to you about anything. Because in our world today, There's no real way to prevent them from seeing horrible images and video before they're able to process it. Be safe out there. Redditor66. I watched a Kanye PRN video on there once. He was porking Kim. He turned and looked at the screen and yelled, "What you looking at?" Scared me soft. Redditor67. Nope. Just stay careful, and if you don't know what you're doing, try not to interact. Redditor68. When my supplier was acting sketchy and thought the cops were onto him, and then bam. A few days later I am being raided by several different agencies. Redditor69. I may have successfully purchased drugs on the darknet. I followed directions from Google on how to access it using Tor and how to encrypt Bitcoin addresses. The material arrived from outside the US. I was stoked. Excited that I actually had completed it. Tested my drugs and all was great, until I realized I did not use a VPN. I was shitting it for about a month. One night, I got my things ready to have personal sexy time. I connected my laptop to my big screen via HDMI. Left the laptop open facing me. I turned on my Bluetooth headphones and had some trouble connecting to the laptop. After tinkering with it, I got the sound working. I was in the middle of a diddle when the scene on screen froze. Although the picture stopped moving, I was still hearing sounds. I heard loud creaks like boots walking over wooden floorboards. The more I started paying attention to the sound, the more I began to hear clearer. I looked directly towards the laptop and here I think he can hear us. He's looking at the camera. My heart dropped and I flung towards the laptop to close it. I unplugged it all and tossed it aside. Nothing came of it to this day, but that fucked with me for a while. Redditor70. I've seen far worse things on Twitter, 4chan or certain subreddit than on the dark web. Redditor71. Never in danger. Sometimes a bit disturbed, but I've never felt oh no's my camera's gonna turn on, or someone's gonna email me my full name and address or something. If anything, I'm more scared of the feds hunting me down cause I clicked on some animal PRN to see if it was real or just wanted to know the prices of drugs for a writing project. Redditor72. This is the exact kind of thread you read with the lights turned off at night because it is scarier than a horror movie. I don't know too much of the details, but one of my friend's brothers got on the dark web without using a VPN. He was a teenager at the time and said he immediately regretted it because someone figured out this real name and actual address on this really crazy site he went on. Claimed that he could not sleep for days after that.